Have you ever been told that you're too much? That your passion is overwhelming, your questions are too deep, your feelings too strong? It's a confusing label, one that can make you feel like a problem to be solved. But what if that intensity isn't a flaw? What if it's the signature of a rare and profound soul, a personality so authentic that, as the psychologist Carl Jung suggested, it reveals the uncomfortable truths others prefer to ignore? Today, we're going to explore the hidden reason behind your intensity. We'll uncover why your very presence can feel like a disruption, and how this quality is not a sign that you are broken, but rather proof of your deep connection to the very fabric of human consciousness. You'll discover that what feels like isolation is actually the result of your soul operating on a frequency that a world built on surfaces cannot easily tune into. By the end of this journey, you won't see your intensity as a burden to be managed, but as a powerful gift waiting to be claimed. The loneliness of being misunderstood will transform into the deliberate choice of authentic connection. You will learn to stop dimming your own light and finally recognize your rare frequency for what it is: a more vibrant, more courageous way of being human. From your earliest memories, you knew you were different. While other children played, lost in the simple joy of the moment, you were a tiny emotional seismograph sensing the invisible fault lines of tension running between the adults. It felt like you were born knowing a language of silence, of subtle shifts in energy that no one else seemed to notice. Your consciousness was a finely tuned instrument, hearing not just the words people spoke, but the vast unspoken truths in the pauses between them. This heightened sensitivity is rarely an accident of birth. It is often forged in the crucible of family environments where emotions are currency, but the exchange is done in secret. You learn to survive by becoming an expert decoder of hidden meanings. Your nervous system evolved into a high-fidelity sensor, capable of detecting the slightest vibration of insincerity. Without realizing it, you became the living archive of your family's unexpressed feelings, the silent keeper of every truth that was too inconvenient to be spoken aloud. At times, it feels like you're living a double life, a translator caught between the world of polite social masks and the raw, unfiltered reality beneath. You're fluent in both, but you've noticed that most people prefer to speak only the language of the surface. This dual vision can make you a lonely spectator in the theater of human interaction, a solitary witness to the gap between who people pretend to be and who they truly are. In these family dynamics, a sensitive child quickly learns that their own emotional needs are secondary. You developed a state of emotional hypervigilance, a constant low-level scanning of your environment to anticipate the needs of others before they could disrupt the fragile peace. Jung saw this as the root of many adult struggles. The child learns that their worth is conditional, measured by how well they can manage the emotional states of those around them. What Jung called complexes, those tangled knots of emotion in the unconscious, often show up in your family as generational patterns of avoidance. The weight you carry isn't just your own. It's also the unprocessed grief of your ancestors, their silenced sorrows, their hidden shames, their unfulfilled dreams. They all live on within your highly receptive system. Imagine being a tuning fork that resonates not only with the sounds in its own room, but with the echoes of songs played long ago. That is how the hypersensitive consciousness works. It doesn't easily distinguish between what belongs to you and what you've absorbed from the collective emotional field of your lineage. Every anxiety becomes your anxiety. Every sorrow becomes your sorrow. Your dreams are often vivid landscapes of this inherited emotional geography. In them you walk through the forgotten territories of your ancestors, feeling the tears they never shed, the fears they never named. Jung would argue that your soul has become a custodian of this collective memory, a living library for all that was meant to be forgotten but refuses to disappear. This energetic permeability makes you the family's unwitting therapist, a role you never auditioned for. You intuitively know who is hurting even when they wear the most convincing smile. You see the comforting lies people tell themselves to get through the day. Your very presence becomes a mirror, reflecting the parts of themselves they've tried so desperately to hide. It's a solitary mission, this unconscious service to the collective soul. You carry the emotional debts of others, often without their awareness or acknowledgement. Jung understood that people like you often function as lightning rods for the unprocessed energy in their environment. You absorb the anger, fear, and sadness that others cannot or will not feel, and your own body becomes the battleground for its transformation. This constant absorption takes a physical toll. You might experience unexplained fatigue, chronic pain, or autoimmune issues, your body's way of signaling that it is overloaded with energetic information that doesn't belong to it. This isn't hypochondria. It's the physiological consequence of having an open emotional circuit in a world filled with static. Learning to differentiate your energy from others becomes not just a spiritual practice, but a necessity for survival and well-being. People react to you as if you're holding a spotlight to their deepest insecurities. Your simple, honest existence reminds them of the parts of themselves they have disowned and buried. Jung called this phenomenon projection. What people cannot accept in themselves, they will judge and criticize in you. Your authenticity becomes an unspoken challenge to their conformity. Your depth becomes a mirror to their own neglected inner world. When you walk into a room, the energy shifts. People sense on an unconscious level that you are not playing by the same social rules. You ask the questions others are afraid to. You find comfort in the silence others rush to fill. You feel things with an intensity that others have learned to numb. This difference is perceived as a threat because it shatters the silent collective agreement to stay emotionally comfortable. You've learned to read the climate of a room not with your eyes but with your entire being. You can sense the exhaustion behind a cheerful facade, the desperation fueling a busy schedule, the profound loneliness hidden within a loud party. This ability is both a superpower and a heavy burden, as it makes you an unwilling keeper of humanity's most fragile secrets. Think of it this way. You are a musician with perfect pitch, living in a world where almost every instrument is slightly out of tune. To everyone else, the sound is normal, even pleasant. But when you play your pure, clear note, it instantly reveals the dissonance around you. Your existence becomes a reminder of a truth they'd rather ignore, that a more authentic, more resonant way of living is possible. Your intensity is like a brilliant light in a world accustomed to twilight. People who have built their lives in the safety of emotional shadows are blinded by your clarity. They don't experience your depth as an invitation but as an indictment of their own superficiality. Unconsciously, they project their own buried longing for authenticity onto you as aggression or judgment. Jung recognized these projections as automatic defense mechanisms. When someone calls you too intense, too much, or too emotional, they are in reality describing themselves. They are voicing their own fear of the depth you represent. Your aliveness reminds them of their numbness. Your vulnerability reminds them of their armor. The tragedy is that as a child you internalized these projections as fact. You began to believe there was something fundamentally wrong with you, that you needed to change to be worthy of love. You tried to turn down the volume on your own soul, to dim your natural radiance, all to save others from the discomfort of seeing their own reflection in you. In the quiet of the night, when the world's defenses are down, you sometimes feel like the only person awake in a city of sleepwalkers. You see them moving through their lives on autopilot, trading their deepest passions for a sense of security, taming their wild hearts to fit into neat, socially acceptable boxes. This clarity can be a profoundly lonely gift. Your difficulty with superficiality goes beyond mere preference. It's a core incompatibility. Small talk can feel physically painful, like listening to nails on a chalkboard because your soul is wired for meaning. You cannot pretend to care about trivialities when you can feel the burning, unspoken questions of existence humming just beneath the surface. This makes navigating the ordinary world a constant act of translation and often a painful performance. This self-betrayal often starts subtly when your natural exuberant reactions are labeled as over-the-top or melodramatic. You learn to swallow your tears, muffle your laughter, and contain your excitement. Slowly, you build a mask of detached agreeableness to hide your true nature. Jung called this the creation of the persona, the carefully constructed role we play for social survival. In Jungian terms, you have become the carrier of the collective's shadow. You represent everything society doesn't want to look at. The untamed emotions, the inconvenient truths, the unlived lives, and so people treat you the way they treat their own disowned parts, with suspicion, rejection, and a desperate desire to silence you. But what if you could understand that your intensity is not the problem but the solution? What if your hypersensitivity isn't a weakness but your greatest evolutionary advantage? Jung believed that differentiated individuals like you are often the pioneers of consciousness, the first to map new ways of being, clearing a path for others to follow. Your ability to read emotional undercurrents makes you a natural detective of the human soul. You spot insincerity from a mile away, you sense hidden agendas, and you hear what is being communicated between the lines. In a world saturated with illusion, this skill is invaluable, even if it often makes you feel like you're on the outside looking in. People with your kind of sensitivity often have a direct line to what Jung called the collective unconscious. You know things without knowing how you know them. You have premonitions about the future. You can feel the truth of a situation even when all the facts point in the opposite direction. This intuitive perception is the natural result of your profound connection to the deeper layers of the human psyche. Sometimes this gift frightens you. You see through the social performances to the vulnerable truth beneath. You sense the inevitable end of a relationship long before the people in it are ready to admit it. You feel the pain hiding behind a smile, the desperation behind a routine, the emptiness behind a flurry of activity. This knowing is both a blessing and a curse, making you an accidental witness to the fragility of the human heart. Your soul has learned to communicate in symbols. A fleeting glance, a particular gesture, a moment of unexpected silence. Everything becomes a message from a deeper reality. You inhabit a world rich with meaning and significance that remains invisible to most. This symbolic perception makes you a natural translator between the seen and the unseen worlds. What others dismiss as an overreaction is actually your natural mode of processing information. Your mind operates like a high-resolution camera, capturing every subtle nuance of human communication. You're not just processing the explicit data, you're analyzing the implicit, the spoken and the unspoken, the conscious and the unconscious. This depth of processing explains why you get exhausted in social situations far more quickly than others. You're not just absorbing your own experience, you're unconsciously downloading the emotional data of everyone in the room. Every interaction is a complex stream of information that your sensitive system must then sort and integrate. It's no wonder you crave solitude. This need for solitude is not antisocial. It is a vital act of self-preservation. To recharge, you must seek out environments that match your soul's frequency. This might be the quiet wisdom of a forest, the transcendent beauty of a piece of music, the immersive world of a novel, or the profound intimacy of a conversation with another deep soul. These are not hobbies. They are essential practices for recalibrating your sensitive instrument and remembering who you are. Jung described individuation as the journey to becoming fully and authentically oneself, separate from the expectations of the collective. For people like you, this path is often steeper and more challenging because your very nature is at odds with the social norm. You must not only integrate your personal shadow, but also learn to withstand the projected shadows of an entire society. It's like learning to dance to a rhythm only you can hear. Most people move to the predictable beat of social conformity, following the well-worn steps of tradition and expectation. You, however, hear a different music, a wilder, more complex melody rising from the depths of your own soul. The first step toward liberation is understanding that your loneliness is not a sign of your inadequacy, but a natural consequence of your rarity. People with your depth are, by definition, not the majority. You are among those Jung would call the individuated, the ones who dare to live their own truth, even if it means standing apart from the crowd. There is a profound freedom in this realization. You begin to see that your otherness is not a wound to be healed, but a quality to be honored. The world is full of people who have forgotten their own depth, who have buried their sensitivity under layers of conformity and functionality. You are one of the few who refuse to completely abandon this innate gift. This solitude, while not always comfortable, is never meaningless. In the quiet space of being alone, you cultivate the qualities that are lost in the noise of the crowd: self-awareness, inner clarity, and an unshakable presence. You learn to distinguish the voice of your soul from the clamor of the world. You develop the rare capacity to be your own trusted companion, even when misunderstood by others. Jung consistently emphasized that true individuation requires courage, the courage to be different, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to stand alone when necessary. People like you often develop this courage early on when you learned you couldn't rely on external validation. What once felt like a curse now reveals itself as a blessing. Your freedom from the need for approval. Yet this journey is not a straight line. Even with this understanding, you will face moments of profound self-doubt. You'll wonder if you're just arrogant, difficult, or making it all up. This is the echo of old conditioning. In these moments, the task is not to argue with the doubt, but to gently return to the felt sense of your own truth. It is a practice of remembering again and again that your perception is valid, even if it is not shared by the majority. Silence becomes your greatest ally. In it, you find the clarity that the world's noise obscures. You learn to trust the wisdom of your own soul over the opinions of others. You discover that true strength lies not in fitting in, but in being faithful to what you know, in your deepest core, to be true. When you learn to see your intensity not as a problem to be solved, but as a defining characteristic to be celebrated, something remarkable happens. You stop apologizing for who you are. You begin to choose your relationships based not on who can tolerate you, but on who can truly meet you in your depth. You become more selective, but the connections you make become infinitely more fulfilling. The people who recognize your intensity as a gift are rare, but they do exist. They are often the ones who have walked their own path of descent, who have integrated their own shadows, and who are therefore not afraid of your authenticity. In their presence, you don't have to shrink. You can finally be your full self, without excuse or explanation. Jung spoke of synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that occur when we align with our true path. When you stop hiding your intensity, you begin to attract people who resonate with that very quality. The universe starts sending you the connections that nourish your soul instead of draining it. It's a paradox. The more you accept that you are not for everyone, the more you find your people. Your intensity transforms from a perceived liability into a natural filter, weeding out superficial connections and allowing for profound resonance. You master the art of conscious solitude, which is different from painful isolation because it is chosen. This deliberate choice fundamentally changes the nature of your relationships. You no longer search for people who will put up with you. You look for those who see your depth as a treasure. You learn that real intimacy is born not from making yourself smaller, but from having the courage to be fully seen. Jung called this the meeting of authentic souls, a rare event that changes a life forever. In this chosen solitude, you uncover the qualities that Jung described as the fruits of individuation. You develop a quiet authority that isn't based on titles or achievements, but on inner alignment. You become a calming presence for others, not because you solve their problems, but because your integrity shows them it's possible to remain whole in a fractured world. People start to see you differently. The intensity they once found threatening is now perceived as depth. The seriousness they mistook for gloom is now recognized as wisdom. The sensitivity they dismissed as weakness is now experienced as a rare and valuable form of perception. You haven't changed, but your relationship with yourself has, and that changes everything. This inner transformation radiates outward. People who have cultivated deep self-acceptance possess a unique presence, what Jung might call a numinous quality. They don't need to compete for attention because their authenticity is naturally magnetic. They embody that rare combination of strength and vulnerability that touches others on a soul level. Your intensity begins to take on a new quality. It's no longer the desperate cry to be understood, but the quiet certainty of your own truth. You wear your depth not as a heavy weight, but as an invisible cloak of dignity. People sense this shift even if they can't articulate it. Your purpose also shifts. You realize you are not here to save or fix anyone. Your task is simpler and yet more profound, to be a living example of authenticity. By embodying your own truth without apology, you hold a resonant frequency that gives others permission to do the same. Your presence becomes an invitation for others to connect with their own forgotten depths. Not through force, but through quiet, unwavering example. You finally understand that your intensity was never the problem. The problem was your attempt to hide it, apologize for it, and justify it. The moment you stop being ashamed of your nature and start seeing it for what it is, a rare form of connection to life itself, your entire world transforms. Jung taught that every individual has a unique gift to offer the world, something that only they can bring. For people like you, that gift is often to be an emotional pioneer, to chart new ways of feeling and being. Your intensity is not too much for this world. This world desperately needs more of your depth, not less. The next time you feel someone recoil from your intensity, remember this. You are not responsible for their discomfort with your authenticity. You are not here to make your life smaller to fit their limited perspective. You are here to be fully, unapologetically yourself, even if some people can't handle it. Your journey is a shift from a desperate need for understanding to the quiet confidence of your own worth, with or without universal approval. You learn the crucial difference between loneliness and aloneness, between isolation and sacred retreat. You discover that the most precious connections are often the rarest, and in the depths of this self-acceptance, you find the peace that Jung described as the ultimate goal of individuation. You no longer have to fight against your own nature or defend it to others. You can simply be, in all your rare, intense, and wonderful uniqueness. And in that being, you find a peace that no external validation could ever provide. If these words have resonated in your soul, if you've seen yourself in this description of the rare, intense spirit, please share your experience in the comments. Tell us what it felt like to finally see your intensity as a gift, not a curse. Subscribe to our channel for more journeys into the depths of the soul. Because the world needs more people like you, brave enough to live their fullest truth.